Scott, this week we're taking a look at a game over on Steam. This one's called Helskate. This is a skateboarding roguelite adventure game. Kind of a couple of genres we wouldn't see necessarily jumping together here, but this is kind of a cool, interesting take on the roguelite and even skateboarding genre of games. This game has been in early access for a little bit. The full release is going to be on the 16th of February, but they have stated that this game is an early access title. They are currently working on the game. They're taking community suggestions and all different kinds of criticism in hopes to find, and smooth this whole process out. Because when you and I first jumped in, as kind of excited as I was after watching the trailer to kind of check this style of game out, I was met with some challenges, especially early on. And we'll get into that, but what were your first impressions of Helskate when you first jumped in?
Well, looking at the overall art style of it, it kind of reminds me of a throwback back to the good old Tony Hawk era, Tony Hawk Underground, Pro Skater, that kind of thing. And and you had actually pointed out Sunset Overdrive, and I thought, okay, I do see that. So I'm really a big fan of Sunset Overdrive, and everybody loved Tony Hawk back in the day. So getting into this, I thought, all right, I feel like I should know what I'm doing, but I do not. I do not know what I'm doing. And instead of Helskate became a bit of a hellscape in short time, and unfortunately, that's kind of where I'll begin this. You are met with an interesting little hub world, and that's going to make a lot of sense. You're going to go back to there between runs, and that's where you're going to level yourself up, upgrade, and perhaps I'll highlight one of the positives there. I really like the characters that you meet. Some of them are really silly. They're pretty well all really silly, but some of them I liked a little more than others, and they talk to you. They're all voice acted, and that sounds like somewhat of a basic comment, but that's something you don't see in games all the time.
True. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like you said, you jump into this hub world, and it almost, you kind of mentioned before we got onto the review here, that it felt like kind of like a big empty shopping mall, the hub world, and there's a couple different stores you can go to get your upgrades and continue on with the story that the game kind of unfolds for you as you go through these runs, and then the area where you jump into the Helskate and you start your run. And that's kind of where, I guess, the fun is supposed to happen here, is when you first get out into the Helskate, you're met with a list of challenges a la Tony Hawk style: collect letters in Helskate, hit this many points combo while you attack these enemies at the same time without breaking your combo. There's a whole checklist of items to do in each world. You can complete them or not. It's really up to you, but the more you complete them, the more materials and things you are able to collect that will allow you to be able to upgrade back in the hub world. And that allows you to upgrade your current board, which essentially every board you ride will give you a different weapon to use. So you get to start off with a katana style weapon, where when you're riding your skateboard, you have a couple of basic attacks, and there are going to be monsters in each kind of world that you jump into in the Helskate, and you go through level to level, and you get these special different attacks that you use, and that kind of helps you kind of keep your combos going between tricks, and that's where the trick element comes in. So as you kind of get through these levels, each level will allow you to choose an upgrade, which is pretty cool. There's 3 to choose from, and then every once in a while as you level up, you also can choose a new trick that you get to learn depending on certain things that you may unlock in each Helskate kind of environment. And the tricks, I actually thought this mechanic was probably my favorite, is because certain tricks will, once you complete them, will actually give you a boost in attack, whether it's, a 400% damage, or the one I did was like an airwalk grab that gave me plus 300 electrocution to my next attack or something like that, which is really cool because when you do get into this game, some of these enemies do get pretty difficult, and you have to make sure, because of the style of game, it being a roguelike, that you don't take that much damage. You got to use the dodge button, so the more powerful attacks you can get off, the faster you can clear these enemies out and then kind of move on to the next world. And that's kind of the gameplay loop in a whole. There is a light-hearted story that you do follow. It is kind of the whole, going up against the man and the bigger corporation towards the small guy, and that's just really what this game's all about. But for me, there's just kind of a half-baked element here, Scott. Everything, as unique as it was, just wasn't really completed enough to be able to feel like you're going to enjoy this game for hours on end.
A skate game predominantly, but it's also a combat game predominantly. So I kind of felt myself being pulled in 2 different directions, and I kind of didn't feel like I was going in either one properly. Landing some of these tricks can be really cool. I liked the ones that did a lot of poison. I really leaned really heavy into the poison and some of the double jumps, and there's things that'll help you kind of traverse the area, because these environments are actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But again, I felt like I was supposed to just kind of clamp down and fight these guys, not explore. Or maybe I'm doing that wrong. Maybe I should just be doing tricks and kind of focus on that. But that didn't seem to really reward me too much either. So you really have to play between the two, almost from one to the other, back to the other. And it was just a little too dizzying. And on top of that, the real issue was come to light. Some of the map's elements were a little rough. The game looks quite stylized, and that's one thing. But you get into some of these blocky elements where things stitch together, and I've fallen through the map half a dozen times, I think. I've been stuck behind little areas that I can't exactly jump out of, and then when you fall to the crevasse below, you just die, run over. So it was really frustrating for me. I found such an easy way of popping into these places, but so hard to get out, and that was really frustrating, especially when you're in the middle of a good run. Finally, I'm seeing this skate competition. Now is the moment where I can really, show off the 20-year-old Tony Hawk Pro skills that I have, but even then I couldn't really hit the right controls properly. The combo system is not dependent on, Tony Hawk kind of standards. It was really strange, and it just kind of didn't feel like Tony Hawk when it was supposed to feel like Tony Hawk.
Yeah, I think like you said, this game's all about balance, finding kind of the good balance between both genres that are being kind of fused together in this game. And that is, like you said, because you're being pulled in almost two directions at all times, you're never really feeling that balance. So the game does feel disjointed at times, and then you mix in graphical issues. I had my own kind of issues where certain areas where you can actually learn different abilities and upgrades that allow you to kind of traverse the world differently. I was trying to get through this area where I was able to grapple from one point to another. Well, every time I held B to grapple, it would take me about halfway and then just drop me off the little trolley that you're on. And I tried it so many times to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it just, to no avail. It was just an issue, and this game has a ton of bugs in it right now. Like I said, the developers are very aware that they're giving us an early access version of the game. They do have a roadmap laid out. We're going to be seeing a spring update. We're going to be seeing, I think, a Q4 2024 update, and then they said even more in the future from then on. So this team has a plan in place, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough to really keep people involved. Scott, I think you and I have had a good time playing this game. But if I had to give this a recommend or not recommend in its current state, I don't think I could recommend this game, as unfortunate as it is, because I think there's some really cool elements here, but it's just not really working together, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you've really explained that well. I really certainly tried to have a good time with this game, but unfortunately I just cannot recommend it in its current state. I really do have hope that the developers are listening to some of this feedback. They have a really excellent idea, like you say, but it just isn't married together properly. And I really have hopes for the future, but right now, avoid.